Welcome back to another edition of the Balas and Skene Show. This is post MSU edition, a happy edition. Kind of a weird game. Doug Skene, Michigan's five-time All Big Ten champion, and or five-time Big Ten champion, one-time All Big Tenner. But you know what? In our hearts, you were like,
Close enough.
as
Close enough, Balas.
buddy. It's you know what? These night games just kill me.
I was
When
thinking about you. I was thinking about you at the game as the game ended. I turned the thing off, and I thought, Balas is going to be working till 4 a.m. It's a night game.
That's exactly what happened. And you know those spin scooters they have? I park a mile away, right? So I'm
Yeah.
trying to get one of these spin scooters to work at like 3 a.m. I probably would have hit a tree. So none of them worked. I got charged anyway. At the end of the day, all that matters is getting the W. Doesn't matter how ugly it is, including the writing. And Michigan gets the W. And man, it did not look good there early. They got bullied. And in fact, for a good portion of that game, I thought Michigan State controlled the line of scrimmage.
Oh, Balas,
And
it was the whole first quarter. The
yeah,
entire first quarter was Michigan State's offense flat out blocking our
yeah,
defense.
yeah, and that was disappointing. And at the end of the day, you know what saved them, Skeen, is kind of their style of play. There were no real explosive plays. It's kind of like what people used to complain about Michigan. You're dominating a football game and you're up 13-7 at half and leaving people an opportunity. So it's 7-0 there going to the end of the first half. And Davis Warren, they start letting them throw. And guess what? Guys started pass protecting a little bit, Skeen.
Mhm.
And I thought this was their best game all year in terms of pass protection.
Well, it was the best game in a few categories. What's interesting in the time since the game ended and reading some of the post game media or stories. I can't remember where I read it. Maybe it was you that read it or wrote about Sharon Moore had kind of seen enough,
Hmm.
right? I guess he went over to the offensive line group and just laid into him after at some point maybe there was a second quarter. I don't know what it was, but I think that's it. I thought that was interesting because clearly this group had more in them. But the interesting thing about the way the game resulted, obviously the scoreboard, what the points was the most important thing, duh. But I don't know when's the last time one team outgained the other in rushing and passing and yet lost the game.
Right.
And the more I look back on this football game, I think Ballas, the game was really won inside the 5 yard line with Michigan's defense keeping those guys out of the end zone. It was
Yep.
just a couple yards difference in the entire metrics, if you will, of how the stats broke out that saved the game for Michigan. Now, yes, Donovan Warren and Alex Orji made some really nice plays in the quarterback position and their different roles, and the offensive line did play
Davis Warren.
better.
Davis
I'm
Warren.
sorry, Davis
Yeah.
Warren.
Yep.
Sorry, Bouse. It's been a
It's,
couple days
I
now.
know. It's
Uh,
okay.
and it's an interesting statistical thing. We'll look back on this one, and so the old line and the way I thought this was going in the first quarter, I thought if this is what this game's going to look like, it's going to be 28-3
Yeah.
because we ran one or two plays in the entire first quarter, and
It's
so
ridiculous. Yep.
it was ridiculous. It was embarrassing that the way that thing started. It could not have started worse, but yet Michigan found out a way to win it. And the one thing that I texted you as I was watching the game, I think there was three or four passes in a row, not plays in a row, but passes in a row that went to different receivers.
Hmm.
And we haven't seen that in I can't remember because we're basically just a tight end passing offense for the previous few weeks, and so we get a different quarterback in there, better protection, better vision, and all of a sudden the ball guard starts going around to different guys. That was a really pleasant thing to see.
Yeah, it certainly was. And I lost Andrew Gentry at right tackle, who I thought was doing a decent job. You bring Evan Link back in, and he stepped up
Yeah,
because there were no sacks. Skeen. I didn't see
yeah,
the quarterback getting hit a whole heck of a lot, and he looked more comfortable in there. Right? They moved him around a little bit, and
yeah.
I said at the beginning of the year, I said Davis Warren. Everybody, you know what, these armchair quarterbacks, they're like, well, he's got 6 interceptions, he's not the guy, he's never going to be the guy. And I wrote so many times that guys tend to improve too. Not one thing, yeah, you got to protect the ball. They weren't all his fault, all those picks. He was not getting any help from his offensive line or his running backs and pass protection who were missing assignments, and the kid stuck in there, and he did a pretty good job. But for him to win this game really was something. Everything he's been through, and then to
Yeah.
get benched on top of that, and to come back and be asked to be the guy was fantastic.
Well, I the one thing I would say to any fan that says, Warren is not the guy, okay, compared to what? Compared
Right.
to who? And if you compare him to his three teammates there that we've all seen on the field as starter, he's the best option that Michigan has. And bringing in Alex off the bench to run those sort of run curveball plays is reminiscent of what Harbaugh did with JJ when he was young and wasn't allowed to throw the football like he eventually was capable of doing. And so if that's the package, then that's going to have to be good enough for this year because that's what we got.
Yeah.
And I thought the kid did a nice job sitting in there, keeping the eyes downfield, keeping his mind in the secondary instead of on his protection, and throwing the football, and did a nice job. And I think Evan Link, after the injury, Link comes in there. The his block of the game, I know he did pretty doggone well in there, stepping back in. But the block of the game was that touchdown run in the south end zone. He comes out of his stance, gets out to the edge, has a really nice kick block. And granted, it was, it wasn't like it was a safety or somebody out there on the edge, but it wasn't like it was a DN. But his athleticism to get out there on the front end of that play and get a positional block in space, which is hard to do for offensive tackles versus little guys. He did a really nice job springing that thing into the end zone. So it was a weird game, Balas.
It
And
was.
again, statistically, at the end of the first quarter, you're thinking this is going to be a horrible performance. And good God, what's this going to be like to watch this the rest of the night? And yet they found a way. They battled and found a way. And in that second quarter, the defense absolutely settled in, started playing some aggressive football and shutting them down. And also, Michigan State is punting more often. So, yeah, I at this point in the season for this football team,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter where they find the motivation. If the head coach has to come over to a position group on the sideline and tell them to get their asses going because you're better than this, so be it. If it takes a quarter to find a way to win, so be it. If it takes letting a team drive all the way down inside the 5 yard line and then you stop them to keep touchdowns off the board, so be it. That's what you get in 2024 from Michigan. Can they be better? I think so.
Yeah.
But in that game, going in with low expectations, and I didn't think they were going to win based on previous performances. They found a way. So that little grit factor for this football team went up, and that's a good thing.
The crazy part is they should have been down 10-0. The kid misses
Yeah.
a chip shot field. That's a good kicker.
Hmm.
And he misses I mean, a lot of things had to go right for Michigan to win this game. You had that fair catch at the 5 where one guy signals it for Michigan State and the other guy,
Yeah.
so they start at the 5-yard line, and instead of a touchdown, they drive the field, and instead of a touchdown, they have to settle for a field goal, right? Or a field
Yeah.
goal attempt. And then you had the onside kick, which was ill-advised. And I didn't think they needed to do that. They had the momentum back. They drove the field. They're down by 6. And, everybody's like, well, Michigan didn't do anything with it. Well, they did because they punted after 3 plays, but then they got the ball back in good field position again, and then they took advantage of it. And then you get the touchdown pass with Donovan Edwards. So
Was
Mike
that was
Panic,
that Dallas? Was that James Franklin coaching Michigan
right?
State that night, or was that
Yeah,
Coach Smith? Because I,
it
I
reminded me a little of the other John Smith. This guy kind of does. I got to be honest. Remember John L. Smith?
he
It's
he
like,
does, but he doesn't listen.
no, no, wait. Let me finish. He's a nice guy. He's like,
Yeah,
rivalries are supposed to be fun, and they're talking at midfield with Sharon Moore before the game.
yeah,
Somewhere Mark D'Antonio is spinning in uh, his coffin at home, because he's a vampire. But he's like, wait a minute, we're supposed to hate these guys. And some of their
yeah.
articles after the game were like, hey man, there's no hatred there. And there are some predictions from colleagues of mine saying, hey, this fan base might turn on him a little bit because
Oh,
he
come
doesn't
on.
because he doesn't get it, because he doesn't understand the hatred. And in fact, one of my colleagues from Michigan State wrote, well, is he going to be one of us now? Is he going to, because he sees, the end of the game and so on and so forth. So as long as he wins, it's not going to matter. Right. And he's a good coach. I like this guy a
Yeah,
lot.
he's a good coach.
But the fact that I like this guy and other Michigan fans like this guy probably pisses them off a little bit.
Well, I respect the guy as a good football coach.
Yes,
He was
I
a good
agree.
football coach before at Oregon State. I don't even know where he was before then, and he's proven to. You can see the pieces of what he's doing there with Michigan State football, and I think they're going to be just fine. I don't think he had his best day on the sideline on game day coaching. I was listening to the Michigan State broadcast on the way home late last night or after the game, just out of curiosity to see what see what their guys were talking about. And there was a lot of disappointment about what they didn't do, obviously, in some situations, but also they didn't attack Michigan more vertically with their outstanding wide receiver that they got out there. And so there's some regrets, and they'll think about this one for a long, long time. But for any Michigan State fan who doesn't think that this is a good coach who's got them in the right direction, compared to what?
Right.
What do you expect here?
Mark
And
D'Antonio is what they
yeah,
expect.
okay, yeah,
Right.
Mark D'Antonio, yeah, who left you guys hanging high and dry at the end of his run there.
But they think they're supposed to win championships now because Mark took them to a level that nobody ever expected they could reach,
That's
right?
true. That's
And
true.
it's a different game now. You got an expanded Big Ten. It's going to be harder and harder for them. And I say this with all due respect, for any team in the Big Ten, that's not a blue blood to really have that level of success again. And
Yeah,
but I
I
think
was
he's a good coach. I do.
so Balas. I'm sitting there watching the game with a couple Michigan State fans and just college football fans. So we're all kind of informed fans as we watch the football game. And
Yeah.
I was complimenting the Michigan State quarterback. I said, "This kid, he looks like he's 6'7" out there. This kid
Yeah.
who's Childs." And I said, "He's going to be a really good player. I think you can see the pieces and the parts. He's coming around and when he gets really familiar with what they're trying to do out there, he's going to be a good player." And then a friend of mine sitting there next to me goes, "If he stays." And then I thought to myself,
Yeah.
that's true.
Right.
I mean, if he turned down the lights and was some superstar quarterback, could they keep him there? Is there enough money to keep him? And it's just another sad state of affairs. It's a different topic, I
I hate it.
understand.
Yeah.
But the whole hatred Michigan State thing, I had a close coworker of mine who was a Michigan State guy, and I texted him after the game that I thought neither team is really all that outstanding. I'm glad we won the game,
That's a
but
nice way to put it.
I think it's true. Neither
Mhm.
team is this neither one of these teams are playoff teams. But as Michigan fans, we're happy we won the game. He was really upset.
Playoffs?
Yeah,
Playoffs?
he was really upset, obviously, in some of the things and that little brother stuff. God, I wish we could put that to bed. As the objective college football fan, everybody sitting in the room, Michigan fans included, when the kid from Michigan State got thrown out of the game for targeting, that is such a crap call. I can't stand that rule, and I hate it when guys
Well,
get
wait,
thrown
it's
out of
not a
there.
crap call. It was a good call by the
Yeah,
letter of the law,
okay,
but
that's my point.
right.
There's no measurement or there's no indication. These guys doing these replays can slow things down moment by moment and then determine that it's targeting. And targeting is leading with the crown of the helmet, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're playing football out there, Ballas, and you're making decisions and you're tackling in a moment's notice, do I think that kid's going to come around the corner, that linebacker? I think it was a linebacker or safety. I can't remember. Comes around the corner. Is he going to come in there with his chest up and his chin up? No, there's no way in hell. So whether it's Michigan State, Michigan, or any other player, I hate the rule.
I know.
There's got to be an amendment to the rule. And the other thing I hate is the fact that these kids get thrown out of the game for the first half of the next game.
I know.
It's
I
just so
know it.
punitive. I think it's crap.
I
And
get
so
it.
anyway,
Well,
I'm I
you're old school. I do wanna say that I understand the intent of it. This is a violent game now, man. I mean, even more violent than when you played because you got guys that are like out there and the collisions are unbelievable now,
yeah,
right? So I understand what they're trying to do. I see guys like I'm not going to mention names, former Michigan players that can barely walk, guys that have lost their minds and things like that. So I understand it. But as a football purist, I get what you're saying. That was a good call. I mean, it was very clear that the
by the
crown of the
letter of the
helmet.
wall, you're right.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was.
and so it wasn't the call. If you don't like the rule, I understand it, but it was a good call. So
I
regardless,
hate I hate the rule. It just
I
seems
get
like
it.
it
Yep,
just seems like back in the days when there used to be clear headhunting going on
yep,
and guys were
right,
launching at somebody else's head.
yep,
That's what we tried to get out of the game for
right,
safety, and we
right,
understand that now.
yep,
But now guys are getting thrown out of games for what they think is a routine tackle, which
yeah,
the way they're, lower your hips,
right.
see what you're hitting and drive through. And all of a sudden these dudes are being thrown out for a game and a half.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous. So
it's a
anyway,
it's a
this is
violent
this
it's a
is
violent
me.
yeah, it's a violent
This
reactionary sport, and you're asking guys to, in a moment's notice to make a decision, and it's like
Yeah,
hitting it's like hitting
and
a hundred
I
and
don't
ten
think
mile an
it's
hour fastball.
I don't think
Yeah,
I don't think the rule is fair to the
yep,
players.
right.
Anyway, for the game itself, and you know the hatred and Michigan State fans not wondering if this coach is one of them because the guy doesn't breathe and fire anytime he sees a block M, I think is a bit ridiculous. I think in my personal opinion, someone asked about the trophy that some of the group that I was sitting there watching the game with were like, I've never seen that trophy before, and I was like, yeah. Well, the 10-year history on this thing is very few people really ever did see that trophy because it was always in the locker rooms. It was kept kind of
Yep.
in a private setting back in there. And then Mark D'Antonio decided to, bring it out and run it around the stadium. And
Right.
really that whole, again, in the Big Ten television productions, they bring back the little brother thing. Let's not forget the true story of what really ramped up the hatred and the public intensity about this thing is when Mark D'Antonio decided to have a moment of silence for Michigan
100%.
football
Yeah.
after we lost to Appalachian State.
Yeah.
And that's what started this. That
Yep.
is actual fact. That's what started it. Now, yes, Mike Hart said what he said and just threw gasoline, and it's gasoline, 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 gasoline. And now you have assaults going on in the tunnel and guys fighting after football games. And it's stupid. Whereas old guys like me, yeah, we wanted to tear each other limb from limb. That is true. And we tried to tear each other limb from limb between the whistles, between the white lines. And I'm as an old school fan, I'm okay with it going back to that. I'm
Yeah.
done with the fighting after the games and the stupid shit
That's
and the little
ridiculous.
brother talk. I'm done with all of that. I have
Yeah.
been done for 10 years, but they
Right.
can't let it go.
Nope. He said he had a black mark on his soul for Michigan, and you could sense it. And but you can sense it among the fan base. They can be mad about it, but I think they relish it at times, and it's unfortunate. They relish it because it helped them win and it helped them take control of the rivalry when Michigan was down a little bit. But that's not what this game is supposed to be. That's not what college football is supposed to be.
Right.
And I've said that many times. And they want you to match their level of hatred, and I've fallen guilty to that at sometimes. That's not going to happen. You know what?
Yeah.
It is what it is. And at the end of the game, it's not, oh, well, now that you've got him saying, well, Colston Loveland started it with his headbutt. No, what happened was the guy in victory formation came after him, started, and then he smacks him across the head. But I really don't care. I'm not going to get into the back and forth anymore. I'm going to say I am going to defend the kid, Colston Loveland, and say no, he's not the one that started this. When you've got newspapers incorrectly representing what happened, at the same
Yeah.
time, we're not going to dwell on this anymore. Hopefully, nothing happened with Kalel Mullings. I saw some extracurriculars there, and they're like, "Oh, look at him, he's stomping." There's no evidence of that. If there was evidence of that, and if Michigan State said that or saw that, I think that we would have heard about it by now. As to what happened in the pile on the field, we'll find out. I will say, if anything like that happened on either side of the field, a guy should be suspended.
Hmm.
And I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say that after what happened in the tunnel, and we were calling for that. If that were Michigan players doing that to Michigan State players, get them the hell out.
Out.
Uh, Flat out. And I'm saying this about if anybody was, if and this is a big if somebody was on the ground and people are saying, oh, they were stomping people. If that were the case, get them the hell out. You're
Yeah.
suspended, whatever. But I'm not convinced that happened. So
Well, it's
yeah,
it's a it's a it's a
it
it's a
sucks.
topic of discussion. It's a topic of discussion, like Lloyd Carr famously said after the 1 second Spartan Bob thing. The game deserves better. For
Hmm.
the guys that play in the game, it deserves better to be having a discussion about the rushing statistics and the pass blocking and all those football things rather than the BS that happens after or before or outside the white lines, outside the game. I'm just done with all of that. I'd,
Yeah.
I'd rather talk about the football, and it's still fascinating that Michigan found a way to win this football game when for the better part of for everything, well, statistically, Michigan State beat us,
Mm.
and yet
Not just
that's what.
statistically, the only really in the trenches, I thought, for much of the
Yeah,
game. I mean,
yeah,
Michigan ran for 100 and what, and a lot of that was Alex Orji. And credit, I wanted to give credit before we moved on to Alex Orji, who I thought finally played his role perfectly. Uh, and they needed him. They needed both of these quarterbacks to play their best games of the year, and both of them did. They didn't ask Alex to throw, and I think that helps. I don't know why or how Michigan State didn't defend it better with Orgy against Orgy because they knew what he was going to do, right? And at the same time, that kid provided some of the biggest plays of the game, and we didn't have to get in watch Michigan in punt formation at the end of that game because of him. And when anything could happen, because it certainly kind of felt like that 2015 game where Michigan State had more yardage, right? and had gotten down and had come back and then pulled it out at the end. But credit to him, credit to Alex Orji, and credit to both quarterbacks really for you know overcoming the disappointment and being able to pull it out for their team.
For me, Balas, watching the game on television, maybe the highlight of the night from the Michigan quarterback group was when either Alex or Warren had come off the field, and and they kind of saw each other out, and they were so excited for each
Yes,
other.
yes,
And that, to me, as long as I see things like that, that they're going to be all right.
yeah,
And you don't see the personal, selfishness or resentment because some other guy's getting a better chance than the next guy. If that's how these guys feel about each
yeah.
other, and you could clearly see that's the way it is, then that makes my heart warm and fuzzy because these dudes are out there for each other. And
Class acts.
when you have that, you can win a lot of football
Yep,
games.
class
And
acts.
so, what's that?
They're class acts, is what they
Yeah,
are.
yeah, great,
Yeah,
obviously great kids. So happy to see that. And then the excitement afterwards. I was really sad to see the young man playing right tackle there. Gentry go down. I mean, I don't know what the injury was. Obviously, your lower right foot injury thing. I thought, oh man, did he just pop his Achilles? Because that was really weird on the replay.
yeah,
But back to the question you had earlier, the offensive line, whether it was Sharon Moore losing his mind and getting up in someone's face with a little spit and finger in the face,
yep,
like we've all had before.
yep.
I wish it wouldn't have taken so long
Right?
for them to wake up. And I've been talking about this, Ballas, in the last few weeks. I've been, you and I've been talking about it. I made a comment or two. It just kind of felt like this offensive line is playing a lot of assignment football and rule football, and I didn't see a lot of piss and vinegar out of this group trying to block people on their ass. And and then finally, there were elements of that, right? And I wish it didn't take a losing of the mind of the head coach for a moment there, but oh well, we'll take it.
Yeah,
And we're going to need more of that, obviously, coming this Saturday against Oregon. But in this game, it was enough. But the one thing I'll take back from this Michigan State game is the defense bowing up inside the 5 yard line,
hmm,
stopping them, and a lot of credit to those guys internally on the defense, just really stiffening up, even with a yard to go. A lot of times you see in college football, there's kind of a resignation inside the five. Some guys are like, oh, okay, we're just going to mail this thing in. I'm going to jump my gap and whatever. But they did the opposite. So a lot of pride down there inside the 5 yard line because it's a different game down in there.
yeah,
And that was the difference in the game, keeping
yeah,
them out of the end zone. And
yeah.
regardless of what Michigan State chose to do or not do offensively, we won the football game inside the 5 yard line.
Yeah, and even Kenneth Grant coming up with a 3rd and 1 stop for a yard or two lost to force a field goal, a longer field goal was a great play. A crappy punt again at the end there, and this something's got to change there. Come on, Tommy. I'm challenging you, Tommy Doman, and he drops a snap too. You,
Yeah,
you got to be better, kid. Get it together here.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is where we, yeah, and
And another thing, Ballas, Michigan
yep,
offensively,
hmm,
I don't know what our stats are on first down, but I can't tell you how many 1st and 10s we lost yards, gained
yeah,
nothing, and
yep,
we're behind the chains immediately, second and long
yeah,
immediately. Our first down efficiency in that game was
yeah,
really not good.
yeah.
They have to fix that.
I
Good
think they had
grief, they
five
have to
threes and
fix
out,
that.
3 and outs, if I'm not mistaken. 5 3 and outs, and
Yeah.
that's a direct result of that. But credit to Davis Warren and credit to Kurt Campbell at times for coming up with a couple plays and a couple wrinkles that really worked. And again, part of it was Alex Orji. You had to love the halfback pass. I did want to go back to Andrew Gentry. It is not an Achilles injury.
Oh,
I had
good.
confirmed. Yep. So he'll be okay in time. He'll be out for a while, but he'll be okay in time. But I thought Miles Hinton did a nice job at left tackle. They needed him
Yeah.
badly in there.
Yes, yes.
And
So that was another thing. Having him back at left tackle versus the performance out of Percy there last week at Illinois. The big difference there, having Hinton back in there. There was a play, Michigan was running to the north end of the end zone, and Hinton was out in front. He had a double. He had a double knockdown, Ballas. I remember it because it
really,
was the sky cam was giving the replay from behind, and I was watching big number 78 getting downfield. He knocked two dudes down in the same play. That's a helmet
yeah,
sticker block right there, Ballas. So that was
yeah, helmet.
outstanding. So
You get helmet stickers for everything now. I don't know if you've noticed this. They're starting to put helmet stickers on the uniform because they're running out of room, you know? So, "Hey,
Well,
did you finish your peas?" You know, "Here's a helmet sticker at training table." So, I'm just saying.
yeah, he had a good game out there. He was playing with emotion too. You could see that out of him. So it was good. And listen, you should play with emotion when you're playing Michigan State. And so he obviously did that. And it was a good night in a lot of ways. And it was a step forward for this football program in this season where things are, and the struggle bus a little bit here. And that's not going to change, as far as the challenges that are ahead. But it was a weird game, and but we'll take the victory in a season where we thought things were going to fall off the cliff.
Yeah, and so will Clayton Safey, the only one in staff predictions to pick Michigan State. I don't think he envisioned it this way, and a lot of things had to go wrong for them to lose that football game. And guess what? Those are things that happen in this game. As one of my friends texted me, worse or better or worse Michigan State teams have beaten better Michigan teams,
Yes,
and and it's just like they came up here expecting to win. Flat out, they
hmm
did. So
and they
let me.
played like it. They
They
played like it,
in the
except for
beginning.
this much.
Exactly, but it's the that much that sometimes determines these football games. And if you put the stats in front of you before the game, not to mention the rushing and the holding Michigan's rushing game to next to nothing when Alex Orji wasn't in there, and you look at the turnovers, the one cost them 3 points, right? It's funny how, again, you talk about little things. If they don't get a big run on first down, then they don't run that rollout with Aiden Childs, and he's not as trying to escape, and they don't give up the 3 points, right? And
Mhm.
they just run out the clock, and it's 7-7 at the half, and it's a different game. But little goofy things happen, and it is what it is. I do want to touch on this. I think a former player said. I said again after the post game BS. I said, would it really kill us to have a reset here and just, not have this game for 2 or 3 years and just put it in the regular rotation and then revisit protecting it down the road just as a cooling off period? And I know Michigan State fans hate it. I know Mel Tucker said, "Who said that? We shouldn't do that." Well, him saying that to me confirms that maybe that's a good idea, to be honest with you. And
I wonder if
I
they
know you
will.
guys like the game, but to me, just you know what, just put it in the freaking thing. Michigan doesn't need that game right now. I understand that you played in it and you love it and so on and so forth, but you know what? What's it going to take to get some cooler heads to prevail here?
Well, I think listen, I've thought about this, and what all it's going to take is both head coaches being very explicit with their teams leading up to the game, during the game, and then at the end of the game. It's pretty clear. If anybody does anything stupid, you will pay a heavy price the following week in practice. I will run you till you barf, and I don't know what it takes, Balas, but this can be fixed. And listen, I saw what happened at the end of the game. I saw the play. The defensive end comes across. It's not uncommon and to see that in college football and in a rivalry game, a tight game. Um, and as a 22, 23-year-old, 21-year-old, when I played in those games and was on those fields, I wanted to rip people apart. It's very emotional. But in hindsight, when it's just so much better when you know you have a victory in a heated moment to just extend the hand, smile, shake somebody's hand. I got you. We won the game. It's over with. And I'm not expecting anybody to walk off and exchange jerseys or anything like that. But there's ways to handle that. It can be coached. It can be fixed. It just seems like some guys, at the end, it just happens that in the close ones, the last two of them haven't been in Ann Arbor. Somebody does or says something stupid, and all of a sudden you have criminal activity or borderline criminal activity going on. It's not football; it's a fight at that point, and so um, it can be fixed. I don't think the television networks are going to allow this game to take a few year break. I don't think the Big Ten wants it either. And as a fan, I don't want it to go away. I want to watch these games. And the dudes just need to keep control a little bit better. And there's another way to fix this, though, Ballas, and maybe it was the case last year when it's 49-3. There's usually not a post game fight because the
Yeah.
conclusion's long but over with at that point. But it's easy for me to sit here and say this as a 54-year-old former player. I understand when you're 22, you want to kill people out there. But there's a better way to do this than ruin what the game means. And like Lloyd said again, the game deserves better.
Yep. Well, we'll see if Michigan can get better next week. They're going to have to beat Oregon. That's a pretty good
Whew.
football team, and at the same time, I don't think. I think if Michigan matches the intensity, if they come out and play like they did against USC, and they understand we got the number one team here in the country, right? And if I'm Sharon Moore, I'm telling them, look, we got three top 10 teams we're going to be playing in the next four games. And if you win all three of them, maybe you got an outside shot here. And I'm not saying that they do, but that's how I'm framing it. I'm saying if you beat Oregon, you go down to Indiana, which, by the way, is a good football team. And I
Hmm.
said, I told a couple of my friends, I said, if you've got money, even without that quarterback, bet Indiana +5 to cover that. And sure enough, they did it. And then you've got Ohio State, then you still have a lot to play for, right? So
Well,
it's gonna
If
be a great
Michigan
atmosphere.
if Michigan beats Oregon by 3 touchdowns and then whips up on Indiana by a few touchdowns and then crushes Ohio State by 3 touchdowns, then
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
then we can get in the playoff, right?
right. And maybe I'll win the lotto, but hey, that's
And
okay.
I did watch. I haven't seen any Indiana football this year outside of highlights on
Okay.
a halftime show, and so I don't know what to compare at the quarterback position for Indiana. I turned the game on. I wanted to see what was going on at the quarterback position, and I think I texted you, and I
Hmm.
was like, man, if this kid's the backup down there, I don't
Yeah,
see a whole lot of drop off in what they're doing offensively. So Indiana is obviously
yeah,
playing sound football. They're playing excited football, Balas, and you and I talked about it in this game. When you get dudes that are playing emotional football that are in for each other, you can make up for talent deficiencies. You can make up a lot for talent deficiencies. Indiana's doing that right now, and
yeah,
they're on a roll. We'll see if they can carry it over next week in East Lansing against Michigan State. So that's exciting. But yeah, the number one team in the nation coming into Ann Arbor. Um, there's a lot to play for. It's another gut check thing. We'll see what kind of emotion Michigan can bring to it. The defense is going to have to play its A game once again.
yep.
And watching Oregon play, they're the real deal right now. They really are. So what a chance if you're Michigan to go out there and do something.
And Will Johnson would like to see you out on the field too. Hopefully, he'll be back. Toe injury, a little bit of a shoulder injury, so they could use him out there on Saturday. Hopefully, he heals up. So he's Doug Skene, Michigan's former five-time All Big Ten champion. One of these days, you got to bring out the rings. I want to show everybody the rings, maybe
I'll
before the
just
Ohio
take the
State game.
picture off the wall right
No,
here.
no, 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 no. I want to make sure you didn't pawn them. We all want to make sure you didn't pawn them. So
Okay.
we know your mullet punter friend probably did, so for some of his quaffs back in the day. So, but anyway, his hair, by the way, his mullet must have been standing up on end the way he was texting in the first quarter on Saturday. He was,
We all were. The sky
yeah,
was
I
falling,
know.
man. It was,
Talk
I
about
know you're
mullet on
busy.
fire.
I
Yeah.
know you're busy in there in the press box watching the football game, and I'm sitting here. I'm just watching this like tackle for
Oh God,
loss,
terrible.
three and out, and
Yep.
I'm just watching Michigan State in that first quarter. I'm like, my God, this is
Yep.
almost perfect football, almost,
Yes.
except for that
Yes.
last couple yards. This is
Yep.
almost perfect football at Michigan State. Their offensive line, which was not very good, was just flat out blocking us.
Yes. Yep.
And so it is what it was. Michigan found a way to win. So we'll
Yep.
take it.
We'll take it. Doug Skene, I appreciate it. We will do it again next week, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, go blue.